Hello everyone, I'm Al Grego, and this is the Season 7 finale of the Yes We Are Open podcast. I'm back in Ontario for this last episode, headed west from Toronto along the Queen Elizabeth Way to Oakville. With a population of approximately 213,000, Oakville is a vibrant town located on the shores of Lake Ontario between Toronto and Hamilton. Known for its charming downtown core, Oakville offers a blend of urban sophistication and small-town charm. The town boasts a thriving arts and cultural scene. Meanwhile, thanks to its proximity to major highways and the GO transit system, it also provides an attractive option for commuters seeking a quieter lifestyle outside the bustle of Toronto. Oakville is also renowned for its high quality of life, with excellent schools, diverse recreational opportunities, and beautiful green spaces. It's the home of Glen Abbey Golf Club, a world-famous golf course which has hosted numerous Canadian Open championships. Oakville's economy is buoyed by such industries as technology, automotive, and pharmaceuticals, drawing many professionals and their families to make their home. It's consistently ranked among the top places to live in Canada, and for 5 years in a row, Oakville ranked in the top 20 best locations to invest in Canada, according to Site Selection magazine. Right now I'm driving along North Service Road East, parallel to the QEW. I turn north on Invicta Drive for a couple of blocks, and to my left is the location of this week's story, Retrofestive. From the outside, Retrofestive may not look like much, just a storefront in the end unit of an industrial park. But as soon as I open that door, industrial is replaced by magical.
Hey there,
Hi,
how are you?
For
Tyler.
Yeah.
He was out front.
That's Jordie, one of the owners. Tyler is her husband. We find Tyler in the back warehouse.
Is that FOTM, Al Greco?
It is. Are you
This is
Tyler?
my wife,
FOTM
Jordie.
Tyler?
Hi, nice to meet
Hi,
you.
nice to meet you too. This place just goes on forever. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah, we got a lot of stuff, that's for sure.
FOTM is an acronym for Friend of Toronto Mike. It's a bit of a long story, but Tyler and I met last year at a Toronto Mike live podcast event, hence the FOTM. At the event, Tyler was giving away moose mugs from the movie Christmas Vacation. You know, the ones they were using to drink eggnog. We got to talking. I found out he was a Monaris merchant, and so here we are. Anyway, back to this podcast. Tyler takes me for a quick tour of his store.
We've just kind of are almost done flipping it for Christmas. When it's not Christmas, it's everything pop culture, not necessarily Christmassy.
Okay.
Just every movie, TV show, t-shirts, mugs, you name it.
The storefront is many different rooms with shelves stocked with all sorts of retro toys, games, and candy. Many with a Christmas theme, but not all. From retro toys and games like Evel Knievel's Stunt Cycle, or the original Pogo Ball, or Care Bears and Pound Puppies, to more current collectibles like Funko Pops of all genres, anime collectibles, and action figures. But yes, most of what I see is Christmas related, with walls and walls of Christmas ornaments, advent calendars, nativity sets, and tabletop decor from every imaginable pop culture genre. If they don't have it, it probably doesn't exist. But let Tyler know anyway. He might be able to make it happen. After our tour, Tyler and Jordie lead me into their office where we set up for their interview.
Hi, my name is Tyler Schwartz, also known as Ty the Christmas Guy, and I'm the owner here at Retrofestive, Pop Culture and Christmas Store.
My name is Jordie Schwartz. I'm the co-owner of Retrofestive Pop Culture and Christmas Store.
When did Retrofestive open?
When we opened, it was probably 2008. I think that's maybe 17 years ago. It wasn't like you see today. We actually started in our apartment. We started small. We brought in the first leg lamps from the movie A Christmas Story that were ever shipped from Canada. And it all started really when I went looking for a leg lamp. I was a fan of the movie and no one was selling them in this country. And the US wasn't shipping into Canada because they're so big and they were very costly to ship. Right. And I got to know the guy selling them in the States. And he said, hey, if you want to be our Canadian distributor, you can do that. And that's kind of where it all began.
What's your background in business? Like what made you think you could start this?
I kind of was doing it as a side hustle. My background is in marketing and communications. And at that time, I was head of events at Canada's Wonderland in Vaughan. Actually, I had just really started there, and I had this opportunity at the same time to go into business selling leg lamps and other Christmas items. And you know what? I took a leap with the encouragement of my wife, and we went into the leg lamp business.
So the leg lamp was your first SKU.
It was my first SKU of many. And then from there, we kind of branched out into Christmas vacation merchandise and Christmas vacation moose mugs. We were the first people to approach Warner Brothers and ask for a license. No one had ever licensed anything A Christmas Story before. And actually, I partnered with the gentleman in the States who was selling the leg lamps. He had connections with the people at Warner Brothers because, they were licensing for the leg lamps. And so together we started making moose mugs from Christmas vacation in China, importing them into North America. And man, it was booming back then. This is probably 2009, 2010. And certainly in the USA, they sold hundreds of thousands of moose mugs. And we had the Canadian market, tens of thousands of moose mugs every Christmas.
When Tyler came to you and said, I think we can start a business selling leg lamps, what was your reaction?
Well, I have to say I was pretty excited about the idea of it. We both were huge fans of the movie, and we realized what an untapped market it was. And we knew that there were a lot of people like us that maybe wanted a leg lamp. So we were young at the time. We didn't worry too much.
What were you doing then?
I was working as a singing waitress in Niagara Falls.
Really?
Yes. Right. Yeah. That was about, I was working in
Montana.
Yeah. And I was Remington's. Yeah. Remington's of Montana. And I was still in university.
Well, I mean, what were you singing? What was your specialty? Were you doing Adele?
Yeah. No.
There was no Adele back then.
No, that's true.
Pre-Adele.
That was pre-Adele. Yeah. We would sing lots of upbeat and romantic songs for our customers who were visiting Niagara Falls for the first time. And we would serve them their dinner while they were eating.
And
At last, my love has come along. I was not planning on singing today.
Wow, that's great. Amazing. So was that what you wanted? You were kind of hoping to like a career in music?
No, I've always wanted to have a career in education.
Okay.
Yeah.
Singing was just kind of...
It's been a part of my life for a long time.
So leg lamps, it's just a weird thing to start a business on, just leg lamps. I mean, that was the thing. It was really a lark. It was a foot in the door. And we never said, hey, this is going to be our business, just selling leg lamps. Mm-hmm. It was really meant to be like, oh, it's Christmas 2008, I think it was. And we said, let's sell them this Christmas. But the response was so great, so immediate that we said, well, guess we got to double our efforts for next year. Sure. And then our customers said, well, can you sell other Christmas movie stuff? And for a while, like a couple of years, we were kind of the Christmas movie merchandise people. We brought in Charlie Brown Christmas trees and Home Alone turtle doves and all those things that you might remember from the old Christmas movies. And then fast forward a few years later, and then we just started saying, we're not just Christmas pop culture stuff. We're all pop culture stuff and all retro stuff. And that's kind of where we've grown, because at first we were just really focused on Christmas, and we were happy to kind of coast through the rest of the year to just planning and leading up for the next year to come. But at some point, probably once we started having kids and things, and once we had employees that we had to keep on year round, then we said, well, we need to make this a year-round viable business. And so that's what we did. By having a year-round pop culture store, we had customers and orders all year. When did you open that then?
The first year that we had kind of a store here in our warehouse, I think, was 2012.
So about 4 years.
Probably 4 years in. So I know you talk a lot about challenges that businesses faced. Well, one day we got a knock on the door from the friendly Oakville bylaw inspector, because we were first working from our apartment. But a couple of years later, we had moved into a home, and we were shipping leg lamps out the door, and Canada Post and Canpar pulled up in their trucks every day. And we thought that was the greatest thing ever. Sure. Our neighbors apparently did not think so. Somebody called the bylaw inspector, and they kindly said, you know what, you can wrap up this season, but you need to figure it out. You need to have a real commercial establishment. So, it was one of those things where that was difficult to hear, but it turned out to be a great thing because, we got our first little warehouse. It was in the same building, but it was just a smaller unit. And we gradually grew year after year after year. And our clientele grew too. But in those early days, we would have open house stores in our home. I remember one year, Jordie had a party for her friends from university, but we had our open house the next day. So her friends went home around midnight, and I spent all night clearing out the furniture and setting up tables and all the merchandise, and we would open the front door to our home and invite in our customers who were none the wiser that we were up drinking and partying the night before.
So you had a pop-up store in your house.
Yes, and that's what we would do for a number of years. And we still have customers saying, I shopped at your house. And we still got the same house, but it's hard to imagine that that's what we did back then. Our original name was not Retrofestive. Our original name was the Canadian Leg Lamp Company. Now, as you can imagine, that kind of limits you.
Yes.
So we did 2 or 3 years called the Canadian Leg Lamp Company. Mm-hmm. And then at some point I thought, probably should have thought that one through. So I knew that I wanted to do retro, and I knew I wanted to do Christmas, and I liked Retrofestive because it kind of sounded like retrospective.
Why Oakville?
Tyler lived in Oakville when we started dating, but we both grew up in Port Colborne in the Niagara region. So we settled in Oakville when Tyler was working in marketing for a company here in Oakville, and I was still in school in Guelph. So it was a great place to live at the time. And we've really just found that the community is so supportive of small businesses. And, we've seen nothing but positive community support the entire time we've been here.
Obviously, it's a great place to raise a family, and it's very central, we find. So, when our customers come from Hamilton, Burlington, Milton, Toronto, like it really does feel kind of like we're in the middle of the action, and it's not too far for anyone to drive. So,
all right, you mentioned Dragon's Den. Let's talk about that experience. First of all, do you remember what year was it you were on Dragon's Den?
The first time was 2011. And it was one of those things where I honestly, and I think this is probably true for a lot of companies that go on Dragon's Den, we weren't truly looking for an investment. We were happy to just keep doing our own thing, but we were looking for, the marketing power of the show. So we went to the auditions and they loved our story.
We were just happy to get there because on the way there, our van ran out of gas. So it was a very stressful day getting to Dragon's Den that day. So it really just made it that much more exciting when we finally did arrive. Yeah. And were able to, get in there and meet the dragons.
And we're still married because I forgot to put gas in the car before the event. And we were running behind. And I said, no, we'll gas up after the show. Don't worry. Let's just get there. And we made it to the Gardner Expressway and the van conquered the gas. So,
the van full of leg lamps.
All I can say is I think the dragons really loved it. But mostly they said, not really for us, but can we buy one from you? And we did sell some.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Kevin O'Leary did purchase a leg lamp from us immediately following that episode.
Check it out. What's your favorite thing that you saw here?
I am a huge Home Alone fan, so I do love the turtle doves from Home Alone. We went to California and actually met the artist who makes them, and he was the artist who made them for the movie Home Alone 2 Lost in New York. Yeah. So that whole experience, I love the doves, but just the memory of going to meet him was super cool.
I mean, I am obviously fond of the leg lamp. I am fond of the origin story, but I think I would choose the moose mug. And probably because in my head anyway, it was my idea and it was a huge success.
Which product that you sell are you the most surprised is so popular?
Well, that's a toughie.
Like, do you guys sell the pet rock?
Oh, it's a huge seller.
Really?
People love the pet rock. We're sold out right now.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I guess that's pretty surprising. Mm-hmm. But yeah, people love the pet rock.
You know what people love? And this is something else that we have exclusive is the Lifesaver storybooks. Do you remember when you were a kid, yes. You got with all the different flavors? Yeah. Well, they don't do that. In Canada now, they don't do that at all. They don't do the Lifesaver storybooks. Right. But a few years ago when they were still doing it, it was all just the generic 5 flavor ones. But what we do every year is we bring in the books from the States and we bring in all the different flavors and we make our own Lifesaver storybooks just the way you remember from when you're a kid. So, you get 7 different flavors and it's all comes in the book and all that kind of thing. And people are, just today I got an email saying, when are you doing that again? Because we're the only place that does it.
Because I'm looking over your shoulder and there's a Star Wars Chia pet.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm thinking back to when Chia pets were a thing. and a little surprised that they're still being made, right? But you were able to find these things and give them a second life, or at least give them a new market.
Yeah, and that's the great thing, and really something we banked on every year. That, you know, just like we saw the Rainbow Bright and the Strawberry Shortcake, there seems to be a few new things every year that are a throwback to our youth in the 1980s and 1990s. I always say the good old days, you know, the better times. And so the trick is going out there and sourcing that stuff and finding it. And yeah, Chia Pets was one of them. They kind of came back to life, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago. And now the biggest thing is that they're licensed styles. Back in the 80s, it was like a cat or a dog or whatever. But now it's, you know, do you want Grogu, or do you want Pee Wee Herman or Elf or Bob Ross?
Bob Ross, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure that one's a
Bob Ross is amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure. Curating this stuff must be a majority of the fun for you.
It's my passion, and my wife might say that maybe I buy too much stuff. I find too many great things, because it's constantly like, oh, our customers would love this. So like, how can we not bring in the retro scratch and sniff stickers from the 80s? They've just launched those, and we certainly have to have every cent that they make. So Jordie would say, hey, maybe 12, cents would do. And I'd say, no, they make 36 cents, and they're all the exact ones they had in 1983 or whatever. So
did you find the original manufacturer?
Yeah. I mean, we got lucky. The original manufacturer just maybe 2 years ago decided, I guess we should start making these things again.
Yeah, I think that Tyler has done an amazing job at curating this collection. There really is nothing quite like Retrofestive. You know, you can find a lot of these items in other stores, but there's nowhere else where you can find all of it all together in one place. So he's done such a great job.
What's your favorite part of coming to work?
Well, I'm only here some of the time. You know, I spend most of my time at my job and raising our family. But I would have to say, especially, when I'm here on weekends when it's really busy in the store, just seeing how excited all of the customers are when they come in. And, we've had some of the same customers for 15 years, like Tyler mentioned, that were shopping at our house. So we've seen their children grow up, and it really is just such a fun family tradition for people that always brings me a lot of joy.
Up next, from 1 SKU to 10,000, Tyler and Jordie have done a great job of growing Retrofestive into a thriving business. With all that growth, there must have been some growing pains. Or were they? Let's find out. You're listening to Yes, We Are Open. Tyler and Jordie Schwartz started their retro empire selling leg lamps from the movie A Christmas Story 17 years ago. Today, they run Canada's top shop for old school fun. As with any business, there are bound to be struggles along the way, and Retrofestive is no different. Let's have a listen.
What's been the greatest struggle for Retrofestive?
Honestly, I struggle on a day-to-day basis, and maybe it's partly my fault, but I find that I'm a jack of all trades. I do a little bit of everything around here, the marketing, the digital media, the online website, and all that kind of thing. And the secret is that I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. So I've been doing this for 15 years, and it's 15 years by the seat of my pants. And really what I wanted to say to your listeners is, if you are out there and you are in the business of helping small businesses with digital marketing, social media, please call me, because I can use some help. What I found over the years, honestly, Al, is that, I've contacted agencies, small agencies, and often they take your money and they don't really give you what you hoped for. And so much of the time, because I've been burned in some ways, big and small, I just say, I'm going to do it myself. But I know that, especially if you look at our website, it's pretty good, but I think it could be better. It could be way better. If you look at our social media, we do it really hit and miss. Some weeks we're particularly inspired and we do some great social media, Instagram, Facebook, that kind of thing. But other times we're too busy working in the business and we don't really have anyone to do it. And several times I've brought people on board to do it, and I'm just not really happy with what they produce. I haven't found the perfect people to help us grow at an affordable rate. You know what I mean? Like you've got maybe people that are just coming out of school who'll work for, minimum wage, but they don't quite have what it takes. And you've got larger agencies who want lots of money and kind of underdeliver. But I've always felt, for a long time now, that there's this middle ground, and maybe I just can't find the right people. But if you're out there listening and you think you might be able to help me, give me a call.
I mean, I could totally see a mall kiosk or, a retrofestive store in malls, right? Like I know malls are kind of shutting down and stuff. So I get it that why you wouldn't make that leap, but it seems perfect for that kind of thing. Right?
Well, in fact, we have done a couple mall kiosks over the years. I guess it was before the pandemic. We did it 2 or 3 times. And each time was a learning experience. I mean, when you start expanding to malls, it's difficult to do. It's difficult to find good help. And I think, that might be an ongoing theme of what we're talking about today, is finding the people that can help you, especially when you're kind of seasonal. When we opened up our mall stores, we did one in Burlington, one in Mississauga, and one in London, Ontario. And if you can't find the right people, what happens is you usually sign the contract in the summertime, you start buying all the inventory, and then typically the last thing you do is go out to find people to staff it. And it's really stomach churning when the right people don't walk through the door. We signed a contract to have a mall store at the White Oaks Mall in London, Ontario. I think something like $10,000 in rent that we guaranteed them. We moved all of our inventory there. We hired people. And you know what? The guy who was managing it flaked out 2 weeks into the season. Well, it was 2 weeks into our season here in Oakville, and it was the day before the store was supposed to open because he was going to commute from Oakville. And, we said, are you sure you want to do this? Are you really sure? And then once we spent a couple of weeks going back and forth, he said, I changed my mind. I don't think I want to do this. We were going hot and heavy here in the warehouse, shipping orders and running our store here. And all of a sudden, our guy drops out for the London mall store. And you know what we did? We just said, we're not opening. We don't have time to find someone else. It's too stressful. I thought I was going to have a heart attack because I had invested all this money in the merchandise and in the rent. And so I just told them all, we'll still pay you the rent, but we're not going to open our store. I'm not really sure what the contract said, but they did make some reference to the fact that they could sue us if they wanted to. Anyway, we got away with that. And it was a learning lesson. It was like, you got to be sure. So after that, we did do a couple mall stores, but they were closer to home, within 10 minutes or 20 minutes of driving. Sure. So if somebody did drop out, we would be able to step in and do it. So.
But right now you don't have
We don't. Since our last store was in 2019, and then we know what happened in 2020, malls are precarious at the best of times, and they do get busy for the holiday season. And I'm always tempted to do it, but so far we haven't done it.
I would say one of the biggest challenges is competing with huge corporations and big business like Amazon. We try so hard to have competitive pricing. And, I can tell you firsthand that we offer better customer service than really any company I've ever dealt with. And, it's just so hard because really a lot of times what it comes down to for customers is price point. And there are just times when we cannot compete. And also like having something delivered to your door that day or the very next day, as much as we try, we're not quite there yet. And we do have really fast shipping, but it's really tricky to compete with big business. That's for sure.
How were you affected by inflation, if at all?
Greatly affected by inflation. Really, everything that we sell keeps going up in price. And a lot of it comes in from the States too. So you're affected by the exchange rate and the high rates of shipping costs and all that kind of thing. So, little by little, we try so hard to keep our prices down, because we know that's what our customers want. And we know that Amazon is always just a click away. But, sometimes you just got to raise the prices. And luckily, our customers have been following us and it hasn't been too bad. Our pandemic story is the opposite of many. We had so much sales, we had to turn our website off. Wow. We were not prepared for it with the product, with the employees, with the size of our warehouse. The demand was massive. We were one of the only ones besides Amazon who ran out of everything. You know, we were the only guys standing, it felt like anyway. And people were turning to us, especially at Christmas time. Our typical Christmas season is stressful because we go 0 to 90 in the case of 2 weeks. All of a sudden, people decide they need what we're selling. But when there's a pandemic, it's that tenfold. And there were some stressful days. I just remember thinking like, stop it, because, you know, my computer dings every time I get an order, which, you know, in most years that's pretty good. But it was like ding, 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 ding. And we're like, turn it off. We didn't want to under deliver. So there were days when we said, okay, it's 3 o'clock. We're turning off the orders now. If you wish to order from Retrofestive, come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Have you ever heard of anybody doing that? Never. But we had to.
Customer experience is so important to Retrofestive, and you know, not being able to fulfill orders in a timely way, we didn't want to do that.
My brother and my sister-in-law were helping us out, like anybody that we could find to help us pick and pack orders. It was really an interesting time. And especially because all around us, you see people really struggling, businesses really struggling. And we were struggling, but kind of the opposite.
Coming up after the break, we find out what the future holds for Retrofestive. Welcome back to Yes, We Are Open. Despite all the challenges faced by Tyler and Jordie to grow Retrofestive while keeping a quality client experience and competitive price, they've persevered. And as of this interview, they're now gearing up for their 17th holiday season. So what are their plans for the future? Let's find out.
What would you say is your future outlook?
Well, you know, our future outlook, I think, is to stay the course, to be honest. I think a lot of companies have growth strategies and aggressive ideas. At this point in my life, we're focused on raising 3 young boys. Mm-hmm. And my mantra constantly is keep the wheels on the track and keep on going. You know, I do have ideas about where this could go, but for the time being, while we're kind of also distracted by our family and trying to have that work-life balance, we're good with what we've got now. And if we can keep going down that road and keeping the customer we've got and bringing more people, then I think we're happy.
Well, Tyler's always on the quest for the next best thing. So I'm always hopeful that he will continue to find the coolest, newest things. But yeah, I think that we're both in agreement, you know, given the time of our lives right now. And our team members have been with us for many years, and we're kind of all in the same place. You know, most have children, young children as well. So we're just happy to keep going as we are and just hope that everybody can have that perfect work-life balance.
All right, I'll start with you on this last question. Looking at what you both have built over the last 17 years, how do you feel?
I feel really proud of Retrofestive. I think it's such a fun, unique Canadian experience, and I'm just so grateful that we've been able to keep it going for so long. And I'm so proud of Tyler because he really is the chief cheermeister. So he's really
that's what's up.
he's really kept us going. So
I love that reference.
In so many ways, it feels like it was so long ago when we started, and in some ways it feels like it's, you know, yesterday. But I think, you know, looking back, all in all, the most positive thing that's come from it are the countless families who come in here and look us in the eye and say, you are our Christmas tradition. We watch the movies, we listen to the music, and we go to Retrofestive. And for some people, maybe they're in a different province, it's shopping online. But for the locals, it's coming to our store with their family. And, you know, we're at the point now where we've seen these kids grow up. They come in every year. And I've kind of got goosebumps just saying it. But for a guy who grew up loving Christmas, it is so cool to know that we are part of people's Christmases and that they look forward to coming and seeing us every year. There's nothing like it.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
thank you.
Is Retrofestive open?
Yes, we are open.
Perfect.
That's the story of Retrofestive. Nostalgia is a powerful drug. That's an adage attributed to many different people, and depending on how they finish the adage, it could lead to a negative sentiment or a positive one. The older I get, the more I lean to the positive. I like having a memory triggered when I see, hear, feel, taste, or smell something that takes me back. Walking through Retrofestive, I'm flooded with that feeling. It's like a warm, happy hug. Now, if you want to take a more cold, hard view on the subject, you could say that nostalgia is big business because, well, it is. According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, nostalgia is a multi-billion-dollar business expected to grow to $500 billion by 2030. Now, Tyler and Jordie probably didn't have those numbers in mind when they decided to sell leg lamps. They just wanted to share their own nostalgia. Well, sharing has paid off, and I think they're well positioned for the future. Oh, and by the way, I took the family to Retrofestive this past weekend, and they loved it. I think we may have found a new Christmas tradition. Yes, We Were Open is a Menards podcast production. I'd like to thank Jordie and Tyler for taking the time to share their story. You can learn more about Retrofestive at retrofestive.ca. Follow them on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Retrofestive. Please support this podcast by writing us a review on Apple Podcasts or rate us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a Canadian small business owner or know of one with an interesting story of perseverance to tell, I'd love to help tell it. You can contact me at podcast@menards.com. And that does it for another season. That was so much fun. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, I'd like to thank everyone on Menards' Marcom team for their help and support in putting this season together. There are too many to name, so please check the show notes for their names. I'd also like to thank the amazing merchants who welcomed me into their place of business and allowed me to tell their stories this season. The Real Escape Canada, Scout Coffee and Community, Spice Circle, Door World, Shooters Family Golf Center and Restaurant, Avo Game Room, Generate Cakes, and Retrofestive. Please support them by supporting their business. Production on Season 8 will begin in the spring, so expect a whole new season of small Canadian businesses and their stories by April of 2025. And keep your ears on this feed, I'll post updates as Season 8 approaches. And finally, I'd like to thank you, the listener, for listening, subscribing, and spreading the word. Your support has once again helped this podcast win an award, the 2024 Branded Podcast of the Year from the Quill Podcast Awards, and we've earned a handful of other nominations from the People's Choice Awards and the Canadian Podcast Awards. So a huge thank you to all of our listeners. Without you, this would not be possible. So for the final time this year, on behalf of all of us at Menards, sincerely, thank you for listening to the Yes, We Were Open podcast. I'm Al Grego. See you in Season 8.